What is going on, everybody? Vlad with the Plotting Success Podcast, and we are back for episode 6. I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We've definitely had a good amount, of people showing love. I think we've got, like almost 60 subscribers on YouTube now. Starting to get some traction on downloads. So really appreciate you guys listening. And today we've got a really, really special guest, actually, because we had some last minute cancellations. And because of that and a comment that I saw in one of our last videos, I figured this would be the perfect time to talk a little bit about myself and give an intro. I had somebody comment on the last video. They're like, great podcast, but who are you? Why should we be listening to you? And I think that's a great question. This should have been probably, episode 1 as far as giving an intro and like who I am and stuff like that. But we just went right into it with the Ryan Pineda podcast in episode 1. So due to unforeseen issues, I think this is the perfect time, episode 6, to kind of give you guys a rough breakdown. Just turned 26 yesterday. I'd still say I'm younger, but I am feeling a little older than when I started out, and I've got 250 real estate deals under my belt. We've done some really cool stuff over the past couple years. Obviously still a lot, a long ways to go, but I think you guys could probably, learn a little bit more about me. And I think in today's world of like AI generated content and everything's short form and like you don't really know anybody. I think this is a good way to connect with everybody and for everybody to get to know a little bit more about Vlad and, kind of what I'm all about, I should say. And let's kind of, get started with that. Normally I'd sit and ask, our guests questions, but I'll just dive right into it, kind of how I grew up, how I got started, how my real estate career has panned out over the past, 6 years. And I'll kind of finish off with, I pinned it down to 7 different lessons, I guess, that I learned about business, life, just overall learned over the past couple years as I've navigated my early 20s and building a business and figuring stuff out. So I'm super excited. And if this is something you're into, then, tune in. And if not, then skip, to our next episode. But so I grew up in Vegas. I'm originally from Russia, but I was born in Germany. I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents are basically circus acrobats. They're, of Russian descent. They lived out there, and my dad worked in Germany for a little while. That's the reason, that I was born out there. I moved out here when I was about 2 years old, so really just grew up in Vegas my whole life. And, middle class, not really, making a ton of money. But I was very fortunate. My family was awesome. I had a really, really good upbringing, and can't complain for sure. But definitely no business, nothing business related. Like I said, my parents were athletes, so I played sports, my whole life since I was about 6 years old, and that was my upbringing. That and going to school, because if you have immigrant parents, then better go to school and you better get good grades. So that's kind of what happened to me. I grew up. I started playing football at the age of 6. I dabbled in other sports, but for me, football was kind of my main squeeze. That's what I did for the most part. I played every position you can imagine, but for the most part, since probably the 6th grade, I was the quarterback of my football team. So that was really my main focus. And for the longest time, I thought, hey, I'm going to the NFL. All kids think that, but obviously that's not how my life has shaken out. But a lot of what I do now has came from that sports background. And as I went to school, like I said, I had immigrant parents that were really, really tough on me to go to college, get good grades, and do all of that. So I grew up straight A student. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're like, I was bad at school, I was terrible, got terrible grades. That just wasn't me. That wasn't my upbringing. Like my upbringing was, like I said, I had straight A's. I got a couple B's throughout my life, and I'm pretty sure like I cried in my room afterwards because I was just so like devastated because I was, didn't want to disappoint my parents and didn't want to disappoint myself either. So as I kind of grew up, like I said, sports was a big part of it for me. And I think a lot of what I do now from sports has translated into business. But there's a big misconception that just because you played sports, you're going to be good at business. But That's not necessarily the case. One thing I found is, the good stuff from sports translates well into business. And, with that being said, I always kind of took like a leadership role whenever I played football. Like I said, I was a quarterback, but, a lot of the times I took on a leadership role of watch me do it and do as I do, not as I say. That was kind of my biggest kind of way of leading my teammates, I guess, at that time. And, what I would really focus on was just showing them exactly how things are supposed to be done, and then basically expecting them to do it, because if I'm not doing it, I'm not going to expect you to do it. And so that's exactly kind of how, I think I started to realize that, hey, at one point I'm going to be in some sort of like management, corporate business role. And it became more and more prevalent as I kind of got into high school. I started forming like different 7-on-7 teams, and like, I think at one point I created like a whole team from scratch, recruited all the guys, got uniforms, like really, really took on a big time leadership management role. And I think at that point, that's when I was like, okay, I could probably be pretty good at leading people. And so I went through high school. Like I said, I played football. I graduated 7th in my class of 900 people. So pretty decent grades. I think a B.5 away from being valedictorian, which bummed me out, number 1 in the class, but I just wasn't that smart. I just worked really hard in school. And after I got done with high school, I went to college. I was a preferred walk-on at UNLV. Basically a preferred walk-on is like you're not on scholarship, but you have a spot on the UNLV roster, as soon as you graduate. So I graduated. Next day I was at practice at UNLV, which it's hometown school, so pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. And, I went there. I had a lot of scholarships for academics because, like I said, I was, pretty decent. And when I was graduating 7th in my class, it's not because I was like super smart or like intelligent or anything. I just worked really hard in school. Like I was not going to let myself down when it came to that. And I wanted to make sure that, I just gave it my all the time. So I got a lot of decent money for academics. And so when I went to play football really didn't do much for me. It was more of just, I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to go play college football, and I want to go play in the NFL. As I started playing football, I realized, man, it's not fun being the walk-on. I was down on the depth chart. I wasn't really getting a lot of playing time. The coaches, they didn't really love me too much. So one day, after kind of struggling with it for months, I ended up actually kind of sitting down with myself. And it was within my first year of college and being like, is this something that I could see myself doing moving forward? Like I just spent, at that point, 15 years of my life playing football. Is this something that's going to take me to, the promised land, to the NFL? Or is this something that I just have to leave behind? And, after kind of battling it, I was like, I have to leave it behind. So I ended up going into my coach's office. I told him, hey, appreciate the opportunity, but I'm done. I'm going to walk away from football. I'm going to go and try to figure something else out. And that coach, he's no longer at UNLV, but he told me, he was like, hey, you're just like a quitter. You're really never going to be successful because we left this spot for you and you basically took a spot from somebody else. And now you're quitting on us. You're just going to be a quitter your whole life. So that was a big time gut punch for me, because you never want to hear anybody say that to you right to your face. That's pretty bold to say, I would say. But it was also one of those things that kind of lit a fire in me. Like, really? Like that's what you think? I'll kind of show you. And that's kind of what I ended up doing, because, in the back of my mind for years, that was something that I thought about. I was like, who does this guy think he is? And later on, I think the following year he got fired, and, we've kind of progressed every year since then. And so, at that point, like I said, I quit football. And that next year of my life was super, super dark, because when you kind of give up something that you've done your whole life, it's tough. It's a tough reality check and, gut punch swallow, because I had jobs. I was like a lifeguard, but they were all miscellaneous jobs. They weren't like career choices or paths or anything like that. So I ended up, quitting football, and I'm like, what do I do now? for somebody that's always needing to do something and, progress in some way, shape, or form, I was like, uh-oh, like I'm in trouble. But, one thing that I knew was I need to go do something. If I'm going to quit football, I need to make sure that I'm actually progressing my career and progressing my life. I'm not just going to be some kid that just goes to college and just coasts at, some low level job. Like, what am I going to do? And so I was going to UNLV for finance. And at that time, I thought, hey, I am going to go and I'm going to move to New York. I am going to work at Goldman. I'm going to start off as a investment banker associate, and I'm just going to move up. I'm going to move up through the ranks over 10, 15, 20 years, and, I'm going to become one of the top guys at, whatever bank, and that's kind of my future. And as I started looking more into it and, interviewing for internships and just a bunch of different stuff, I realized that is not the life that I want. It just was like 15-hour work days, just no free time. It was just not the life that I envisioned for myself, even though it sounded good at first. And so that plan ended up going out of the window. I was like, I can't do that. It just is not going to work. My next plan was, hey, let me go and become, a personal financial advisor since I am going to school for finance. And so I went, accidentally got into Primerica, which if some people know Primerica, that's like multi-level marketing, not the personal financial advice that you want to be getting into. Obviously, I'm sure some people make money in that, but I realized, hey, I signed up for the wrong thing. So I think I quit that within a week. I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong spot. And after that, I sold insurance for a little bit. Really, I bounced around and just kind of did it all. I had no, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was signing up for like coding boot camps. I was like, should I start to code? Meanwhile, anybody that knows me personally on a personal level, they know I'm not a computer guy. So what was I thinking? I think I wasted like $1,000 on a coding boot camp. And so I was like, I need to figure something out. But that whole year, I was just trying new things. And stuff just wasn't sticking. It wasn't really my calling. I didn't like it. And so one day, during this time, I was also working at the mall. I was working retail at Hugo Boss. I was selling suits, which, by the way, was actually a phenomenal job for me at that time because it taught me a lot of sales in a lot of different ways because the guys that I was working with were like 30, 40 years old. They were like salesmen at a high-end store, and that place is cutthroat. Like, it's probably just as cutthroat as a car dealership or something like that. Like, you really had to learn how to sell, how to talk to customers, how to upsell, how to do all those different things. And I think I worked there for about a year, and that was a phenomenal job for me, long-term for sales. Learned a lot. The guys that I worked with, they taught me a lot. But like I said, I was just bouncing around outside of that, trying to do a bunch of different things. And one day I was listening to podcasts because at that time, trying to bounce around, you're going to listen to a bunch of different podcasts. And that's one of the reasons I even started this in the first place, because if I could change somebody's trajectory of their life, I mean, that's phenomenal. And that's what happened to me. I heard a podcast, and it was the first guest of this podcast, Ryan Pineda. He was on there. He was talking about how he flips 100 houses a year in Las Vegas. I believe it was a Bigger Pockets podcast. And I was like, wow, 100 houses a year flipping in Las Vegas? I'm in Las Vegas. Like, I need to know how to do this. So I ended up reaching out to Ryan Pineda. I was like, dude, I will work for you for free. You ask whatever you want from me, I will do it. I'll clean your floors. I'll bring you coffee, whatever you need. And he was like, dude, I don't need you. I don't need anybody right now. I'm not hiring. It's not something that is on my mind. But if you're interested, I host a real estate meetup. You're more than welcome to come by, learn a little bit, and go ahead, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. And so I was like, okay, I'll be there. And literally the next week he had this meetup, I was there. I was definitely one of the youngest ones. I think at that time I was just 19 years old and just grasping onto different stuff. I was like, how do I flip houses? I was asking him. He was like, go talk to anybody in this room. You need to start wholesaling properties. And I was like, what's wholesaling? He's like, just go talk to everybody around here. So started talking to all the investors that were in the room, and they started telling me, hey, you go, find properties that are distressed. You're going to go sell them to other flippers, and you're going to make a spread. That's how you're going to build up, your cash flow. Go watch YouTube videos on it and go learn. So that night, boom, I'm already learning. I'm watching YouTube. And within like a couple weeks of watching it, started taking action. That's one thing about me, and I think one thing that's kind of allowed me to be successful over the past couple years. And when I say, I hate saying the term, allowed me to be successful. Like, I don't want you guys for it to come braggadocious or, in any way be like, oh, look at me. But I do think we've been able to build up something pretty successful over the past couple of years, and I think a lot of people can probably learn from that, because I was able to bootstrap it from literally $300 when I was working at Hugo Boss, because I was burning every single paycheck because I was making like $1,000 a check, to where we're at now, where we do 100 deals plus a year, and have a team that makes more money every single just ends up being a lot more successful than me, is what I'm trying to say. But basically, at that time, I was like, okay, how do I go ahead and implement this right away? So learned 2 weeks later, I was in the field. I was door knocking. I heard somewhere that you needed to door knock tax delinquent property. So I was driving around. I would go to class at UNLV, get in my car, go to like the worst houses in the hood in Vegas, and go door knock the tax delinquent properties, the ones that were at least like $3,000 behind on taxes, which if you're $3,000 behind on property taxes, that's like over probably 2 years of not paying your taxes. And so I'll go door knock. And one day, this lady opens the door, and I was like, hey, I'm actually here to talk to you about selling your property. And she was like, hey, waves a contract in my face. And she's like, I actually just signed. The guy just left. And I looked down the street, and the guy just left. So the investor beat me there by probably like 15 minutes, went and got this property under contract, probably wholesaled or, bought it, whatever their strategy was. But I was like, okay, wow. I was literally this close to getting my first deal. So I got to keep digging. Like it's like that meme where it's like really close to the diamonds and you just kind of stop. I can't stop now. So kept going. And I think a couple weeks later, I got my first potential deal. I ended up reaching back out to Ryan, who kind of explained the real estate process to me. And he went and personally helped me close this deal, get it under contract. He was not nearly as big on social media or anything like that at that point in time. And so he had the time to do it and, really pour into me. And that was huge because, for anybody that knows, it's like you can know something, but until you actually do it, that's when you gain that real experience. And so after I saw him do that, it was like just a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, boom, I could do that. And I went and started going hard on my own. Probably took me another 5 months to close my next deal solo. But once I did, I was like, I'm never going back. I ended up quitting my job. March of 2020 is when I was like, I'm out of here. I quit my job the next day after I closed that deal. I think we made 20 grand on that deal, which was at that time life-changing money. I've never seen that much money in my life, which, 20 grand is 20 grand. That's a lot of money, no matter how you cut it. But for me, that was just absolutely life-changing money. And I was like, okay, we're locked in. We're going to start doing this. I quit my job. Next day, the whole world shuts down for COVID. It shuts down for COVID. Everybody's like, yeah, I think the economy's going to crash. Real estate market's going to crash. And I'm just thinking like, man, I could have been collecting unemployment, but I've never really been the guy to do that anyway. So I was like, I wouldn't have, done that anyways. I was like, we've got to double down on this real estate thing. There's really no choice. And so we were wearing masks. I was going to seller appointments. I was locking up deals. That year, from March to the end of the year, we did 9 deals. So 9 wholesale deals was what I ended up doing. I didn't flip a single house in 2020. I was just building my bankroll and learning the process. I was learning to comp properties. I was learning what buyers are buying stuff at. I was seeing what they were reselling stuff at, how much they were putting into rehab. I was building my Rolodex of connections. All of that was what I was doing. And I really wasn't concerned about the money. That's the biggest thing. I made 6 figures that year for the first time, but it didn't matter to me because what mattered was I was learning and I was basically putting stuff in my tool belt so that I could use it later. And basically 2020, I ended up closing the 9 deals. The following year, my mentor was like, hey, you've got to start flipping houses. You are leaving way too much money on the table, just wholesaling all your best deals. And I know you're watching flippers just kill it on the back end. I was like, you're right. I do need to start flipping houses. And so February of that year, 2021, is when I bought my first house. I bought it myself. I used all of the cash that I had accumulated from wholesaling, and I got a hard money loan to purchase that property. I put down, I think it was $50,000, and then I fronted the rehab as well, $20,000. I got that back from my lender, and then another $20,000 is a $40,000 renovation. But I literally went all in. I used up all my money for that deal. I was like, I've got to start flipping. And so I did that first deal. And as I was finishing, I had another deal pop in my lap. And I was like, I need to flip this one too, but I had no money. So I ended up calling a guy, and I was like, here, I will, I'll give you a profit split, but you got to fund this deal because I'm literally like out of cash. I have no money whatsoever. I used it all up on that deal. It will close, but for now, this is what I have. And so as I was finishing my first one, I bought my second one at that time. And that one turned out great. The first one turned out great. The market really helped me out a lot in 2021 because the market was going up. So when I was thinking the property was going to resell for X, it ended up reselling for 40,000 more. So obviously that allowed us to make more money and really kickstarted things for me. And so from that point forward, when I bought that second deal, I've never not owned more than 2 deals at any given time. And I just kept kind of accumulating. It would be 2 at a time, 3 at a time, 4 at a time. Nowadays we probably do anywhere from 12 to 15 at a time revolving, sometimes up to 20. But at that time, 2 deals, 3 deals, that was a lot. Like I was like, oh shoot, like this is all my cash. And I remember thinking at some points, I was like, wow, like if this ends up lasting like another month, I'm literally going to go broke because I had all my money literally out on all of these deals. And so I was like, hopefully this house sells, because if it doesn't sell, I'm going to have to go and, try to get money from somebody else, from, my friends, to try to pay these mortgage interest payments, which I don't suggest that for anybody, but that's kind of what you have to do when you bootstrap it. Like I didn't get any cash from anybody. I had to use my own, and I had to accumulate it to start. And so, yeah, at first when I was starting out, I was cold calling myself. I was cold calling. I was on the phone. I started off door knocking. Then I was cold calling. Then I had a team of virtual assistants in the Philippines cold calling. Then texting started doing a boom. So we started texting, and we had a whole team of VAs texting. Then texting became, borderline illegal. You can't really text, and, you got shut down, and you can't go solicit market it, blah, 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 blah. So we had to pivot there. And then we started doing more MLS deals, and we started buying from wholesalers. And so over the past 5 years, I've had to just constantly evolve. Like for a lot of people, they feel like, hey, you kind of start real estate, and then you're just going to, like, oh, it works, you're just going to keep on doing it. But that's not the case. Like the market keeps changing. You keep having to evolve your marketing. You keep having to evolve your contractors. I've probably gone through 20 different contractors. I've gotten robbed by contractors. I've gotten crazy city violations. Like over the past 5 years, I've had to learn a lot of different stuff. And it's all came from experience and just sticking my neck out there. And you really don't know. So, like I said, we did 9 deals, 9 real estate wholesale deals in 2020. Then we did 15 deals in 21. In 22, we did 24. In 23, we did 25 because the market turned. If anybody's familiar with the market, in end of 22, rates went from 3 to 6. So I was on pace to do, I think, 40 deals. And midway through the year, it was like crickets. Literally nothing was happening. And so the back half of the year, I think we made no money whatsoever because the market had turned so bad. So we were selling a bunch of bad inventory. And so we'd make like $5,000 on a flip. We'd lose $5,000. So at the end of the day, I'm very fortunate because I wasn't fully scaled out. It ended up basically being a wash. I made no money in 22. 23, we did 50 deals. 24, we did 99. This year we'll cross 100. So every single year we've been accelerating and growing, and I've had to evolve my marketing. I've had to evolve my process. And over the years, people have fallen off. Not to toot my own horn, but one thing that I feel like I've been able to do is like figure out when to pivot and when to find opportunity and when to back up and let my ego go. And anybody that was like, hey, I'm just going to go all in and just go and burn a bunch of money and I'm going to go and leverage myself out. A lot of them unfortunately got wiped out and they're not in the real estate space anymore. So for anybody that's like, some people, they're going to listen to this and be like, man, I'm struggling to get that first deal. For anybody that's struggling to get to that next level, you have to be careful with how you get to the next level too, because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. And that's how a lot of the biggest guys go bankrupt and stuff like that, because they just think they're too big to fail. At one point, they just get really careless with their money and their deals and stuff like that, and they think they're invincible. And that's when you get hurt the most, when when you kind of have that mindset. So every year we've evolved the team. It was just me, myself, and I at first, then VAs, then we had one acquisitions. We had a project manager or a realtor, everybody kind of building out the team in-house. Now we've got 3 acquisitions guys. We've got, a pretty nicely built out team, and I'm really thankful for them. They do a really good job running what we do. But that's came over the years, like I said, of bumps and bruises and trials and tribulations. So I turned 26 yesterday. It was a phenomenal birthday, but now I'm able to look back the 5 years, and I'm like, wow, it's been a phenomenal journey at this point. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited for what 5 years from now looks like. I love a saying. It's like you overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 5 years. So that's exactly the case. For me, I'm always thinking like, oh, we could do this in a year. And then you're like, oh, I've fallen a little short maybe. But then you look back 5 years and you're like, wow, like that is exponential growth that I could not even imagine. And that's just from taking some risks. So that's where we're at up to this point. And we started the podcast. We're doing a lot of social media stuff. I'm super excited to kind of keep sharing the journey. My goal is, if the followers come, cool, it is what it is, but just authentically sharing it and be able to look back 5 years from now, if the podcast is, has great traction, or even if it doesn't, being able to look back and be like, we were doing 100 deals a year, 5 years ago. That's crazy, because we have, we're on some Grant Cardone level. We have, apartment buildings. Who knows what 5 years from now looks like? But that's my reason for, really documenting it. And to kind of finish off, I wanted to, I guess give like actionable steps and like 7 lessons that I think I've learned over the past, 5 years in business, because it's been a long 5 years. As you guys can see, the hairline is receding. There's a lot of stress. No, I'm just kidding. My dad's bald as well, but there's definitely been a lot of stress and like just stuff that you don't know until you get in it. Like I hope none of you guys have to deal with OSHA. I'll just leave it at that. But it's been an insane ride. So the first lesson that I've learned is don't compare yourself to others. Do not compare yourself to others. Social media has gotten so toxic with just like you go on and it's basically like watching porn. Like that's what it is. You're watching people. Not to take action, but because you're like, wow, like that guy has a Lambo, that guy lives in a penthouse, like, and then you start comparing your life to their life, but their life is different. Like a lot of the time, social media is a facade, it's fake. The people aren't winning the way they say they're winning, and it doesn't matter if they're winning or not. All you should be concerned about is yourself, your own personal journey. And I know I'm like not Mr. Wise here. I've had to battle with that because, when you're looking at people that are 10 years ahead of you and you're like, I want what he has. It's like, well, you didn't work those 10 years. He has 10 years of experience on you. No wonder he has more stuff than you. Like you want what he has, but you haven't put in the work. So humble yourself and just carve your own path, do your thing. So that's been my lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 for me was never, ever compromise integrity for profit. It doesn't matter what that particular situation looks like. It's never worth it. I always choose the high road. I always take the good karma points over the short-term profit, whether that's a relationship saved, whether that is, screwing somebody on a deal. Anybody that's done that, they're out. They're out of the game. And they don't have the longevity because you can only screw people so many times before you become a fraud and you become a fake and people just don't want to do business with you. Or karma really does get you and you get wiped out. So for me, the number one thing, it's like, I want to do the right thing. And I want to make sure that every room that I step in and my name's been in that room, I step into a good environment because everybody in there is saying, good stuff. And obviously people are going to hate on you. I'm sure people are going to watch this and be like, oh, this guy freaking stinks. And it's like, okay. But as far as integrity wise, I don't think anybody can sit there and say, oh, well, Vlad screwed anybody or blah, blah, blah. And I want to keep it that way because it only really takes one particular deal or one situation for word to travel that, you're just not a good guy, not a good person. Number 3 is, as cliche as it may sound, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We talk about longevity. Longevity is being able to do something long enough and not get wiped out. So burnout is going to wipe you out. Over leveraging is going to wipe you out. Sinning and blowing your money is going to wipe you out. Making bad choices is going to wipe you out. It just takes, for me, the way I always think about it, it's like, is this one particular thing worth sacrificing, everything moving forward? And a more extreme example would be like drinking and driving. If you go and you get plastered and you go and you drive home, it's like, yeah, you just saved $100 on the Uber and potentially the inconvenience of grabbing your car in the morning, but you potentially endangered everybody and you potentially ruined your life. So it's like, is that trade-off worth it? No, it's not worth it. I'm taking the Uber. And so that's how I view every single decision that I personally make. It's like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. If I do this, is it going to endanger my business for the long term? If the answer is yes, then I'm not going to do it. And that is not to be confused with not taking risk. You have to take risks. I wouldn't be sitting here and blabbering if I didn't take risk. I take risk every single day, but it has to be really, really smart. And you have to make sure that, you're thinking of it from a marathon standpoint and, not a sprint. Number 4 for me is, in business, not knowing is not an excuse. I know sometimes, when we grow up, it's like you just hear, somebody slaps you on the wrist and you're like, oh, I didn't know. And that's it. But in business, I didn't know can end you. If you don't pay your taxes and then the tax man comes and you say, oh, I didn't know, that's just not going to be good enough. If you're doing business and you're doing it the wrong way and somebody goes and tells you like your business is getting shut down because X, Y, and Z, that is not, and you can't say, hey, I didn't know. So the number one thing is make sure you are educated. Make sure you know, because it is not an excuse in business anymore to be like, oh, I didn't know, because so many people's lives are affected because of you. Like, they could be a domino effect. You're responsible for so many different people, your employees, vendors, contractors, just like third parties. Like, not knowing is just not an excuse. And so make sure you guys are educated. And that's not to scare anybody from pursuing business, but don't be blatantly just doing stuff and being like, I don't know any better. So, there's really no repercussions, because there definitely are, 100%, repercussions for it. Number 5 is you have to take risk. But there's only a certain type of risk that you need to be taking, and that is asymmetric risk. Asymmetric risk is basically your downside has to be far lower than your upside. So whenever I was starting out, I risked all of my money on that first deal. I put all of my money in, but it wasn't much. So my risk was asymmetric. My risk was I'm 20 years old. I could lose all of this money now, and that would be my risk. But my gain is I kickstart a business that could potentially change my life. That is an asymmetric risk. Now, if you told me right now you can make $100,000 on this deal, or you can risk never being in business again and getting absolutely wiped out, I'm not taking that risk. At this point, with what I've been able to build up, I'm not taking that risk. That is not an asymmetric risk for me. That is a highly downside risk. So you have to be assessing every single risk. From my worst case scenario is not that bad. My best case scenario is it works out phenomenally. And if you stack enough of that, you end up getting further ahead, and it ends up compounding over time, because for every time that you lose a little bit, you win a lot. And so that is what I mean by asymmetric risk. And that's the way that you need to be approaching every single business decision when you are moving forward. Number 6 is you cannot listen to others. You have to go with your gut. And I've had to learn that the hard way. It's like, never take advice from people that haven't been where you are is great advice as well. But for me, I just don't take advice from anybody, and that's in the most like humble way. I will take opinions of different people and stuff that I like and agree with, and then I'll piece it together to form my own opinion and then go with my gut feeling. But for a lot of people, they could be either jealous, they don't want you to take that opportunity, they could be scared, they just don't have that kind of risk tolerance as you, so they're going to tell you no. They genuinely might want to see you fail, so they're going to make you, they're going to tell you, hey, go do it, and then watch you get wiped out and put yourself in, in a dangerous situation. So for me, I like to get opinions from different people. Like, hey, If I don't know the answer myself already. If I know the answer myself already, then it's an easy decision. It's a gut feeling. I know it. I did my research. I'm ready to go. But if I need to go and take opinions of other people, it's like I'll piece it together a little bit at a time. Then I'll go and make my own decision. And that's how I suggest it for anybody too. Anybody that says, hey, I go and I blindly follow this guy. He tells me what to do. I go and do it. Idiotic, stupid. Because at the end of the day, that person, what worked for them might not work for you. Everybody's different. Everybody's life and circumstances are different. Your money situation is different. Your family situation is different. Everything is different. So you have to take little bits and pieces, piece them together, and then move forward from there. And then number 7 is don't be polar extreme. I think one of the big issues with the world right now is just everybody is so like one side or the other. And this is not even like a political, but for example, just anybody, you ask them, hey, do you like this? And they're like, either I love it or I hate it. Do you like this person? Oh, I love them or I hate them. For me, I don't love anybody. I don't hate anybody. For me, what I do is I'm like, hey, I can agree with that part of it. Or, hey, I like this person for this, or whatever the situation is, but I don't take it to an extreme level. And that goes for people, that goes for things, that goes for business in general. You have to take little bits and pieces and little takeaways. You could be like, hey, I'm going to use this. This is, vital for me. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use that. But being like, hey, I'm a full believer in this, and no matter what, nothing can go wrong. I'm going to do this, that, or the other. It's just not going to work out. And for me, that's what I found in business as well. It's like you can't just be like a one-trick pony and be like, hey, this is all I believe, and I'm just going to do this no matter what. It just doesn't bode well, because over time, that kind of mindset, it gets outdated. You have to be able to recognize when you're wrong and when you have to change your opinions. And that's one thing that I figured that I'm pretty good at as well. I'm okay with saying, oh, okay, you know what? I was misunderstanding that. But now that I've done more research and I have more experience, I understand it more, and my opinion has shifted. And I think that's a good way to be in business. It's a good way to be successful. And that's those are kind of my 7 lessons. A bonus lesson for me, as kind of somebody that's I'd consider myself like a high achiever of sorts. I can't just sit around and be stagnant. Like I always have to build something. I always have to keep it moving. Like there's going to be a lot of mental roadblocks that you have to fight with, because you start getting in your own head, and that could be your biggest enemy. Burnout and being like imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not growing fast enough. I'm not as successful as I want to be. Those are all going to be things that you kind of struggle with. I think a lot of people, and that's, once again, go back to my number 1, social media kind of makes it worse, because when you have those feelings and then you go and log into social media, you're like, oh, everybody else is winning, but I'm losing. Like, what do I do? Don't take life too seriously, man. Take it seriously enough that you recognize that we only have one life to live, but also take it seriously enough that, you're sitting here, you're watching this podcast right now, wasting time on that, but you're just like a little speck in the universe of people, and everybody's got their own stuff going on. Nobody cares about your problems. The moment you die, everybody's sad, and then probably within the next couple of weeks, everybody forgets about you. So if that doesn't tell you a little bit about taking stuff too seriously and being like, stressing out about stuff that's insignificant, that's all I'll leave you guys with. Once you guys die, not to be morbid, but everybody's going to mourn the death, maybe think about you like every anniversary, but they're going to move on. So it's like, do what you want to do. Try to build as cool of a life as you possibly can. Love on people. Show them that, you appreciate them. Do stuff for other people, because when you do stuff for other people, it feels good. It does for me. And that's one of the reasons I kind of want to, give back and do content and stuff like that. When people reach out and they're like, hey, that was freaking great content. I'm like, hey, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. So don't take life too seriously, guys. Try your best. And if your best isn't enough, then you keep on kicking, because, you have another day. So just be grateful. But yeah, I kind of wanted to do this as as an intro podcast. Who does an intro podcast on the 6th one? Well, it's the guy that has a cancellation on the 6th one. So I figured this would be a good way for you guys to get to know me on a personal level, long form style, really uncut, just a little bit more raw. If you guys, follow me. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram. If you guys watch this, shoot me a DM, shoot me a text. If not, if you guys skipped it, that's cool too. Make sure you guys watch episode 7. We're going to have some cool guests coming on in the future. But make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys are listening, because we really appreciate it. Helps get this out to more people, so that more people can listen, and it can affect more lives. So really appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully you guys learn a little bit more about me, and catch you guys on the next one. Peace.